Hi everybody, MichaelBtheGameGenie here. So some of you might know, I've in fact sold some of my Arcade1Up Pinball tables. The question you're asking yourself is, why did I sell them? Let's talk about it right after this. Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day today. This is just another fun video where I wanted to share with you a personal experience of why I sold my Arcade1Up pinball tables. You guys know I'm a very big fan of these tables. Like I said, I'm a very big fan of these tables. When they were initially released, we had great access to them here in Canada, and thanks to the early reviews by both Cool Toy and Retro Ralph, I was all in when they first came out, and I wanted to get all of them. And because I had access to them, and I had the money at the time, I did. And of course, I did initial reviews, and in these reviews, I told you these products were extremely good, and I stick by what I said. I mean, they're a great build, everything works really well, it feels good, the solenoids feel good. Overall, it's a great product. Now, there were some issues with the screen and the resolution, and some people really didn't like the play, but overall, I thought these were great products, and I stick by what I said in my reviews. So you're probably asking yourself, if I like them so much, well, why did I sell them? Well, the first reason is I needed the space. Some people may remember my Arcade1Up room tour I did earlier this year, and specifically when I talked about my pinball area, and I said how cool it was to have all three Arcade1Up pinball tables, and you know, it was. They looked great together. I thought it was very cool, but the reality is when I went into my arcade, I was mainly playing the Attack from Mars table. I wasn't playing the other two as much, and they were there more for visuals, so, you know, that led into it. And also, if you look at that video, my space had gotten extremely tight, and I had made some compromises with how everything looked. I mean, you look at this here, I had stuff pulled out, this was across the door, and while I had a ton of arcade cabinets in there, it just wasn't sensible anymore, so I decided I was going to get rid of some of the pinball tables and make this room sensible again by making everything work properly. I also still stand by what I said. I mean, I would have loved to have kept all of these, but initially when these were announced, Attack from Mars was the one that I really wanted because it was based on real pinball. And if you look at what my room is built up of, I'm trying to recreate a real arcade. And while Marvel and Star Wars are super cool, I mean, these are not real arcade cabinets. These are Zen originals put in cabinets that aren't authentic. Now, if Arcade1Up comes out with another Williams table that's authentic, maybe I consider adding one of those again if it was something really cool. Or even Indiana Jones, the Pinball Adventure. That's something I would consider adding. But in terms of the other stuff, I'm less inclined because it doesn't represent real arcades, and it's only taking up space for me bringing in a classic recreation. So guys, that's right, I went back on my word from as early as the end of last year when I said I was going to keep my pinball tables together, but a lot of things came up. Like you guys know, I've talked about this. I'm also interested in a real pinball machine, so that was one of the key factors. I needed space, I needed more expendable income, and I was just trying to clear stuff out. So right now, in the short term, I was interested in making my Arcade1Up area more comfortable, plus I wanted to get Terminator 2, so I cleared out some space. But that's not the only reason. I mean, I talked about how these games are really Zen originals, or as I've called them, video game pinball. I was adamant going into the release of these tables that I only wanted Attack from Mars, only wanted the real tables, but I fell into the trap and I ended up getting these. But what I discovered after the fact is it's all pinball, it's all good, I really enjoyed them, but there's also other ways to play these. So as you guys know, I also have an AtGames Legends pinball table. Now, I'm not going to fixate on the fact that it's an AtGames Legends pinball table and give this a ton of credit for doing this, because this is the same thing that any virtual pinball table or home build you can do. The truth is, Pinball FX3, if you have it on Steam, on PC, you can also play it externally on your own pinball cabinet. Now, I use the AtGames Legends pinball because it's one I have. It's super easy, but you can use any at-home build to do this, and you just basically hook a PC up to the external build, put in for the cabinet code with Pinball FX and you can play it. Now, specifically on the At Games Legends pinball table, what I like about it, it's a bigger play field, so it's 32 inches. And I will tell you, one of the complaints that my wife had about the Arcade1Up pinballs, and she didn't like playing them, was that the balls were too small on the more video gamey table. So on Marvel and on Star Wars, the ball was just too small. But if you look at the way that the ball looks here through Pinball FX3 in cabinet mode, it looks a lot bigger, so it's a lot more enjoyable to play. The other truth of the matter is, these games were very hard to run on the chipset that Arcade1Up had in the tables, and sacrifices had to be made with graphical degradations and sometimes with the play mechanics. So these don't play the same that they do on PC that they do on these tables, because those concessions had to be made. They were made specifically for those tables. So I do like the fact that I'm playing them here through the ALP, through cabinet mode, and it's more closer to what the original experience was meant to be. The graphics are good, and little the small details, like on Spider-Man in the ramp, how you got Mysterio smoke, that's not in the Arcade1Up pinball table, but it's here. So you even get the small details, and the animated characters on screen for the video game pinball. I mean, we get to see the finer details. There's no jaggies, so it's just a little bit of a better overall experience. The other thing is, I'm not waiting on stuff. People are waiting for a universal pinball table, but here I am playing Jurassic Park. Here I am playing Back to the Future and having a blast on this pinball table, playing it the way that arguably it should be played. Now, with the ALP, there's some concessions, of course. I find the plunger doesn't work as well as the plunger works with the Pinball FX3 Arcade1Up tables. It's a little bit of a different mechanic, and these things aren't easy to get up and running. Like, if you're a computer novice like myself, they can be a little complicated. Thankfully, like I've mentioned so many times before, my buddy Wagner's Tech Talk has an awesome guide on his website and also on YouTube about setting up the At Games Legends pinball to work with Pinball FX3 in cabinet mode. Follow this instruction guide and get yourself up and running pretty quickly. Good job, Wagner. I'll leave a link to the video down in the description below. Now, another reason is I do have a fascination with real pinball, but let's be honest here, like, getting in on this is like $6,700, $6,900 on the lowest end if I'm going to buy a new table, and the used tables maintain their value. And like, I had an honest discussion with my wife. I have a baby coming, so as much as I want a real pinball table this year, I don't think it's going to be a possibility. But what was a possibility was getting a decent gaming PC for a fraction of the cost of the real pinball table and hooking it up to my ALP. So you know, I'm already playing Pinball FX3 games on that, but you can also get into visual pinball. This is something I've always seen other people play with, have their own built-at-home tables, and it's just amazing the difference in quality compared to even FX3 and, I mean, the Farsight Studio tables, what we're used to playing, compared to what some of these home creators are doing through visual pinball. And I'm playing some of the games that I only dreamed of ever playing. Like, for one, is the Nightmare on Elm Street Gottlieb pinball table, Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, this is one I've long sought after, dreamed of playing, and I watched my buddy Carl Detroit Love playing it on his modded Toy Shock cabinet, and I was just like, I fell in love. I was like, I need to have this. But I mean, it's going to be almost impossible for me to find a real table. So the fact that I can play it through visual pinball on my ALP, and it works so well, and it feels so good, it's just, it's a breath of fresh air. I really, really enjoy playing it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, visual pinball is not a breeze to set up, even with Wagner's help. And Wagner has a great instructional video as well, again, on this Pin-Up Popper and how you can get it going. It's super hard. Like, it's the strangest stuff. It's not like a normal emulator where you just pop in a game and then it works. You might have to download a core. I mean, there's 3 separate parts to getting this stuff up and running. You have to find the table, and then you have to find the back glass art and a working back glass that goes with it, and then you got to find the ROM, and it just doesn't seem to work. Like me, for example, I'm very fortunate. I've only had to find the Nightmare on Elm Street table was the only one I've had to find myself. I had a buddy here locally who had a bunch of pinball tables already. I just grabbed his build and copied some of his games, but I can't even get a lot of those to work. So thanks, Derm, again. But I'm piecing through this now and trying to figure out how to make it work. So it is super complicated, but when you do get it to work, it's so rewarding. I mean, I'm playing Elvira Scared Stiff here, and it works so well. The other thing that's crazy is people complain all the time about the haptics on the Games Legends Pinball, how they talk about the exciters make it feel like pinball farting, but I wonder sometimes if the haptics weren't actually made for the included games and more so made for OTG and bringing like visual pinball in there, because they feel fantastic with the visual pinball games. Like I can feel like the bumpers bumping. I can feel everything with this through the haptics up front, and it makes me actually enjoy the exciters, which is something I've never said before. I still want the solenoid builds to try it out with it, but the exciters actually work well with visual pinball. It's interesting. It's really interesting. The other thing, too, is these games all just play so well. They look so good. There's a great user community constantly building the original stuff that I'm super interested in and super interested in playing. And then even modern stuff like Leprechaun King and Pizza Time and games like that. So this is just such a good environment, and I'm so glad I bought an additional PC. And I'm playing this stuff and Pinball FX3 on a multi virtual pin home arcade that the ALP provides. So it's a good experience. I don't have anything negative to say about it. Well, other than I wish the Games Legends pinball table was as well built as the Arcade1Up pinball tables, because the difference in height and when you're playing, like I find myself super hunched over with the ALP, but with the Arcade1Up, I always felt really super comfortable playing it. It's just a difference in height. So yeah, guys, that's basically the reason why I sold my Marvel and Star Wars Arcade1Up pinball tables. One was to make room in my arcade and go back to my original thought process of these are video game pinball, and they don't represent real machines. I wouldn't put an arcade cabinet in there that was based on a game that wasn't an arcade game, so why am I doing that with pinball? It's not recreating a home arcade. Sure, they're cool, and it looks cool to have pinball tables. Am I saying I'm never going to buy another Arcade1Up pinball table? No, not at all. It just depends on what's coming along, and if it's a good representation of a classic game I'm interested in, of course. And then number two is there's other ways to play the games that are included. So both these games, Marvel and Star Wars, every single game on each pinball table is a video game pinball game. They're not based on real tables. So it's an experience that was built for a PC. And for me, that experience works better coming from a PC and playing this on a virtual pin through cabinet mode from a PC. So you know what, I just have more fun playing that way. Not saying the other experience isn't good or isn't great, but if you have the option that you can play on a bigger play field in 1080p with the original computer setup, I think that's a better way to play. But there's nothing wrong with playing it the other way. I had a lot of fun playing it on the Arcade1Up as well. It's just, again, going back to the first part, I need the space. And then last but not least, my heart really lies with real pinball tables. Much like the first thing I said here, with the fact I don't want Arcade1Up recreations that aren't real pinball tables, but I want to experience more stuff with pinball. And to do so, I either got to buy a real pinball, which isn't going to happen in the immediate future, or I have to get into VPX, Pinup Popper, and stuff, future pinball, stuff like that. So in order to do so, I need a virtual cabinet, the ALP, and I need a gaming PC, which I now have. So I'm experiencing this and really getting into playing classic pinball in this means. I would love to be able to go out and play real pinball in a pinball place. I don't have any around me. My buddy is an operator, so he's got a roadmap of everything he's got. He's got a couple tables around which I can go try, but there's no real pinball here, so this is kind of the next best thing, and I get to play everything I want that way, and it works really well on your at-home virtual table builds. And the Games Legends pinball, for the price point and what you can do with it, is a good way to play. So that's kind of where I'm leading right now. I hope Arcade1Up improves their pinball going forward. Like I said, I would love to see a Williams Part 2 table, maybe with some Funhouse art, or maybe Circus Voltaire is another table I think is beautiful. I would love to see that. I would love to see improvements with Arcade1Up Pinball where the experience is more closely representative of what it's like playing it through a PC on a virtual pin table. I think that's what we all want. And then something I didn't even mention, with this, I can actually post my scores online on the leaderboards and play in tournaments, which I can't currently do through the Arcade1Up table. So there's an even further added benefit to doing it that way. I don't know, guys. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to me, but again, down in my basement, I don't have great Wi-Fi. I don't have an extra gaming PC, so the Arcade1Ups made sense at the time. I don't know. Anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts. Do you think that I was crazy to let my Arcade1Up Pinball let my Arcade1Up Pinball go? Was I crazy to sell it, or does this kind of make sense to you too? Anyways, that's where I'm feeling. I miss them, but I know they're gone to a good place because I like the guy who bought them, and I'm pretty happy with this setup I've got right now. So, anyways, guys, thank you so very much for watching. This is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time.